Believe it or not, there's one big mistake that you can make when moving here to Orlando, Florida as far as your child's education goes. And in this video, I'll be sharing 5 tips to help you navigate the education system and help you avoid some of these pitfalls. So a part of the inspiration for this video really does come down to my own personal experience as far as moving here in Orlando, Florida. I mean, my wife and I, we have an education background, so we really do know the education system here fairly well. And even with all that, we were still a bit nervous from moving just 20 minutes south in the Lake Nona area when it came to the schools. We just did not know what to expect or really how to move our child from one school to another. So that was something that was a little bit of a stressful experience for us. So I can only imagine how much more it would be for you, whether you're coming from out of town, out of state, or even out of the country. So the first 2 tips are really gonna come down to finding a good school, which can be a challenging thing to do, especially because when it comes to the idea of a good school, that can be fairly subjective for everybody. So it's really gonna come down to your own taste, preferences, and really what you're comfortable with. Tip number 1 is very simple. It's just looking for online reviews and ratings. One site that I find fairly helpful to at least begin the process, and you might already know this one, but I want to make sure that you understand how it applies to the greater Orlando area, is using greatschools.org. Now, I want to preface this by saying this should not be the end-all be-all, but really be a starting point for you to really know what the schools offer, how they perform, just to give you a really good gauge of really how the schools are doing. Now, I really want to make sure that I can show you a little bit of how the website works and how I would personally use it to really analyze the schools in the area. Think to yourself, what are some things that really get you excited, that you really would want to look into a little bit more, and what are some things that maybe create some concern? It just should help you generate questions. That way, when you go in and do an even deeper dive on the school, you can really get some clear answers. Okay, so I pulled up the website here for greatschools.org. We're gonna go ahead and dive in and take a look at how I would use the website. As you can see here on the screen, I already have 2 filters set. I already pulled up schools in Orlando, Florida. All right, I wanted to take a look at a couple of ones that I knew. I just wanted to have this already up for you. So you can see here, Sunrise Elementary, right? They have an 8 out of 10, right? Their test scores are really good, 9 out of 10. They're doing above, their test scores are above average compared to the rest of the state. Student progress, right? So just so you understand a little bit of how the website works, student progress is measuring year over year changes for the students. So how does this do the test scores from one year measure against the previous year, and how much improvement was there? And then equity really has to do with how is the school working to help students who are typically underserved. So think in terms of like low income students that have a lot of, don't have the same advantages as students who are not lower income. So obviously you can drop down to the test scores. You can see kind of where they land compared to the rest of the state, which is of course valuable information, but I don't think it's the most important thing as far as really analyzing how the school is doing. The only reason I would say that it's not as important is because you really want to see how they're improving year over year more than this, even though the test scores on this site are weighted a little bit more heavily. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So you can see here the student progress is 8 out of 10. They're doing very well. So I think this is the key piece of information here when it comes to how the lower income students are performing, because the reality is that they don't have the same advantages that non-lower income students have, right? So for example, they have parents that probably work double shifts, work later in the afternoon. They're just maybe a little bit tired when they come home in the afternoon. They have different kinds of jobs, which makes it a lot harder for them to be able to help those students out. It does make a huge difference, and the fact that they're at this school and they're still performing very well shows that this school is a very top high performing school, because those students, it doesn't matter that they have those disadvantages, they still can do fairly well. So we want to go ahead and also look at the demographics, not because we're worried about who's attending the school, but because that plays a role in how the school is performing. For example, right? How many English language learners do they have, or students that, where their native language is not English? You can see that it's only 7%. So that's a big deal, because if a school has a lot more students that, just simply are not native English language speakers, then they have, they have to work a lot harder, especially if they're also from a low income household. Now, as far as students from low income household, you can see that about 1/3 of the school, which is a significant portion, comes from those low income families, which means that, about 1/3 of the school, does struggle a little bit in those areas. But yet again, you can see that the school is performing very well year over year, and the test scores are very strong, and those students are performing very well compared to the state's average. Now, here's another key piece of information you should pay close attention to, which is teachers and staff. So you want to look at the ratio between teachers and students. You can see here it's phenomenal, right? It's 14 to 1. The state average is 17-1. That's amazing. That means that your kids going to this school will get, great one-on-one attention. They'll get more attention from their teachers. They'll get much more face time. So they'll be able to get help in areas that they definitely do need. So here we have Cypress Park Elementary School. Let's go ahead and take a look at their rating. So you can see here that they have a 6 out of 10. And their test scores are 5 out of 10, right? Definitely a lot lower than the previous school that had 9 out of 10. But here is, again, that other factor I said to pay close attention to, the student progress. It means that year over year, they've made, fairly large, gains when it comes to their test scores. Equity here, want to take a look at that, right? That's another part of the equation. You can see that here, unlike in the other school, lower income underserved students, just are performing lower than the state average, right? So they have a bit of a larger achievement gap between those students that are lower income and those students that are not lower income. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the demographics and see exactly what kind of challenges they have when it comes to this equity overview. All right, so let's go ahead and compare this to the previous school we were looking at. So in the last school we saw they only had 7% students learning English. So you can see here, like, they have 5 times more students than the other school that still are trying to learn English, which again really does impact them when they have to go in and take those standardized tests. Once more here, you can look at low-income families. It's 66%, double of the previous school. So if you compare it to the previous school, you can clearly see that this school does have a different set of challenges to overcome, yet their score isn't too bad, right? So this is a school that I would say definitely has strong teachers, strong leaderships that are working very hard to make sure that there are year-over-year gains, that the students are being helped out. The fact that they scored low on this equity piece here just shows that they have a different set of challenges that they do have to work very hard, a lot harder to overcome. All right, let's take a look at the teachers and staff. So here we can see that the ratio is like incredible compared to the previous school, and obviously here they're going to need it a little bit more than the last school. They have, for every 1 student, they have 10, or for every 10 students they have 1 teacher, which is pretty great. So hopefully there you could see a little bit of how this site could just begin the process of helping you out for researching the schools. Now let's go ahead and move on to tip number 2 that really should help uncover more information about these schools, which is literally just Googling the schools or even searching groups on Facebook that have to do with the school. So I think one of the biggest things really is just searching for some kind of online presence, and in this day and age, it's pretty hard to get by without having any kind of online presence at all. Something that I do find a little bit more helpful is simply, if you happen to have a Facebook account, I would just go in there in the search bar and type the school's name, because you'd be surprised how much information would come up about it. If it was me personally and it was my child that I was gonna place in the hands of this school to take care of them, I would want to know everything possible. So I think this is a very practical tip, especially if you're coming from out of state or even if you're out of town. It'll help you get an idea of what the culture, what the scene is like at the school. The school itself, especially schools that have a very active social media presence, they love to show off everything that they do. It's always fun to see what these teachers, what these principals, all this staff at the schools, what they love doing to, 1, engage with the community, and 2, just create a meaningful educational experience for the students. And I think that's really where the key is when you're looking for and researching the schools. And by the way, that's why I think that connecting with someone that is a live human being in the area is so critical and important. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. I'd love to learn what's got you moving here to Orlando. I'd like to know a little bit about your story and really what you're all about. If you're not big on reaching out, and I get it, that's how I used to be. I didn't like calling, texting, or emailing, or reaching out to anyone if I needed anything or had questions. Down in the description below, there's actually a relocation guide you can download that should help you out a little bit with getting started as far as the relocation process goes. You can go ahead and plug in your email. You can put your own personal phone number in there, and I will make sure to reach out to you. It'll help take the pressure off of you and make it so that we can actually connect, so I can help answer some of those questions that you have. All right, now on to step number 3, which is visit the school. Now you can do that physically or virtually. Obviously, visiting the school will be more practical when you're closer to making a move and you're ready to make a decision about what area you want to live in. But I do think that this is something that is very valuable. I mean, actually stopping by the school, driving through the area. Most of the time, most of the clients I work with that have kids, I mean, typically what they'll do is want to drive through the neighborhoods, get to know a little bit of the retail area. All those things, yes, are super important, but something that sometimes gets missed more often than not is really just driving by the school, checking it out. If it's summer, I would recommend even parking at the school. Let them know that you're moving into the area and that your kids might enroll and attend that school. And if you're there, I would even try to even make an appointment with some administrator, some person that could maybe answer some of your questions so that you can get an idea of what the school is like and whether or not it matches what you've already seen online. Now, of course, I get it. It's not always feasible to be able to visit the school before you actually make a move. So another thing I would recommend doing too is visit the school virtually. Now, obviously, you already saw that you can look at the ratings of the school online. You can Google the school, try to search for their online presence on Facebook or other social media platforms. But another thing that I think could be helpful is simply just using Google Earth or Google Maps, because they have this great feature where you can actually drop and see the street view of the school. Now, I know that might not seem like much, but I think it's very powerful to be able to just look around, see what the streets are like, what the area's like, because Google, when they're sending their cars to drive through these areas, doesn't care about how they look or what's going on around them. They just send their car. When you're looking at the street view that Google Earth provides or Google Maps provides, it's neat because it's not the pretty pictures you see online. It's just whatever happens to be there. So you can see whether or not the area is clean. You can look around to see how close they are to neighborhoods or what they're nearby. Are they near or close to any kind of shopping area? Are they close to banks? Are they in the community? I think those are things that could help out a little bit, while not at the same time being as good as going to the school physically. It gives you some version of the driving through the area without actually having to be there. Now, tip number 4 is taking advantage of Florida Virtual School. If you didn't know, Florida has a completely free virtual online school that you can attend that's fully accredited. It's not tied to the county or the district or anything like that. It is statewide. And once you move here, they qualify to attend that school online. And what's amazing about that is that it can make those mid-year moves a little bit easier. If you don't want your children or they don't feel comfortable starting halfway through the school year, then this could really help ease the transition, as they can easily start online and simply finish out the school year there and then attend the next school year where they get a fresh start. So I think that's one way that it could really help. Another way I think that it does help is the fact that if you're planning on homeschooling, basically this is homeschooling done for you. Basically you have everything. You have a dedicated teacher that can help you out. You have all the online resources that you would need in order to homeschool, which I think is something that would be very helpful if that's something that you're looking into. All right, now for tip number 5, and this is the last one, and I think this one's probably the most important and critical, which is checking the zoning. I'm actually gonna go ahead and hop onto the computer to show you a little bit of how that's done, because again, the last thing you wanna do is buy in a neighborhood targeting a particular school just to find out that you're not zoned for that school.
Okay, so navigating the public school system could be a little challenging if you're unfamiliar with the area, but I mean, in all reality, at the end of the day, just doing a little bit of research, you might be able to find exactly what schools you'd be comfortable sending your kids to. So with that in mind, I wanted to go ahead and use Story Park here and just walk you through a little bit of the process for what it would be like to do that research. So the first thing is, if you're looking at Story Park as a place to live, just pick an address from there and you can easily head over to the Orange County Public School District website, which is exactly where Story Park, would fit in this, because they're zoned for this county. And you're going to go down, there's an area to enter your address here. So that's one way you could do it. But since this is a new construction community, odds are that a lot of the addresses may not show up here. So with that in mind, the next thing I would say to do is go back to the map, find Story Park, and just type out elementary school. School pulls up. All right, it has a couple of different schools all around here. I happen to know which ones are Orange County Public Schools and which ones are charters. Usually if they have fun names like, Mayor Academy, Narcoossee, or Nona Park Montessori School, those tend to be private or charter schools. So, I mean, those are options, of course. But again, if you're kind of focusing on the public school system where you'd basically be given a seat at that school just because you're zoned for that school, then this is the other route that you'd be going. But again, those are options too. So you can see here that Sunblaze Elementary showed up, Innovation Middle School also showed up because it's showing you all the public schools in the area, and then Moss Park Elementary School is also up here as well. And by the way, I'm going to focus on elementary, but this will work for middle school and high school. So you have the two schools here. The next page you pull up, so this first page was the Find My School page, which you would use the address. Now, the other one you can use is this one right here, which is the school attendance zone maps. You can see that they have elementary schools, middle schools, and K through 8, and high school. Drop down. Let's go ahead and find Moss Park. There you have it. This will pull up a map. Let's go ahead and find Sunblaze, Sun, Blaze, right there. And another way to find out if it's an Orange County Public School is just click on the school, and it should give you a link to their website. At the top, it should say something along the lines of Orange County Public Schools. So here we have the map pulled up for Moss Park Elementary. And then I can tell here that this is that Biography Way for Story Park. This is Dowden that goes all the way through here. So yeah, clearly, most likely they're going to be. We'll look at the other map, and it'll be zoned for Sunblaze, Moss Park, right? That it won't be zoned for that one. All right, so here we have Sunblaze. Here we have that little street that makes kind of a U shape, right? This is all Story Park. So we know it's zoned for Story Park. Sunblaze will be the school.
So there you see a little bit of how zoning works here in Florida, and hopefully that should help you kind of figure out what neighborhoods you would want to live in to make sure that your child is able to attend the school that you're most happy with, most excited for them to attend. Now, I do want to make sure I add this in there, and keep in mind that because Orlando is growing so quickly, there are schools that are being built every year, and that means that your child can be at one school one year and then at another school year the next year. Now, keep in mind, that's not super common. That doesn't happen a lot. It'll probably happen in newer construction areas, so that's something to keep in mind when you're planning on moving here to Orlando, but it can happen. I wanna make sure that you are fully aware of that possibility. Now, the great thing is here in Florida is that we have something called school choice, where you could basically choose the school as long as you're within the county and they have space for your child to attend. So if, let's say, you got rezoned and moved to another school, there is still a chance that you could go to that school. Now, of course, I'm not an expert in any of that. You'd have to talk to a local guidance counselor or to the school to really get more information. But as long as there is space and room, you should be able to choose a school or have your child attend a school that is one you're more comfortable with. Now, if you're looking for some of the best neighborhoods to live here in Orlando, you'll want to watch these videos here next, where I go over some of the best spots to live in.